One.
What's going on, Oasis?
Man, hope you all run into a beautiful day, the last day of summer for some, and the day before for the other half.
Yeah.
That's where it goes, man. We are back into the swing of things and full schedules and all that mayhem, and then let the dust
Like
settle
crazy.
where it settles.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes. We have a kind of excited kindergartner.
Oh,
So-
really?
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. She's holding back. I think there's excitement there. I think it just needs to get over that first day.
Okay.
It's not gonna be that bad. Like, one, you already pick up on things. Let's be honest, a little bit quicker than your brother did.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it's just, man, she doesn't know what she's about to roll into. Like, man, girl, you're about to be running.
Yeah.
So
It is wild. Just being that both of our sons took a trip this weekend, and kind of brothers trip, and they just went and did kind of whatever they wanted to, and they came back last night and they were kind of buzzing a little bit. They were having fun and just telling stories, and there's when you have brothers that go on a trip, you have inside jokes and everything that goes along with it. And I have brothers, and I love it, and I love everything about that. But Noah, our oldest, he went to work this morning, and he had to go to bed at a decent hour because he has a big boy job and he gets up early. And Micah, it's settling in of, Thursday it's go time for you, dude. And so I think he's starting to get anxious and everything that goes along with it, which is great. It's the right thing. It's exactly what you're talking about with Eden. It's just she's getting ready and processing and what is it going to look like? What do you mean you're not going to be there? But it's right. And how good is this moment?
Yep.
And everything. So I was thinking about it. It's actually kind of in this vein. A little bit of what I'm going to talk about today is it's a passage out of Romans, and it's just a simple little passage, and it's so just one simple verse, and I don't want to beat it to death. And in fact, I could sit here and talk about it for a long time and read into it and read into my emotions into it and everything that goes along with it. But that's just not what the passage is about, right? So it's Romans chapter 10, starting verse 17 or verse 17. That's just what it is. And it says, "So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ." And there's these two words. It comes from hearing and hearing through the word of Christ. And this idea that is hearing, one, it's listening, and two, it's listening through the lens of Christ, right? Crazy thing. So I was just reading this, and I was reading about just recently. I was watching a documentary, and it was about World War II and the Cold War, moving into the Cold War, and the development of nuclear submarines and the nuclear technology that you had a submarine that can stay underwater for months and months on end. Really, it could stay underwater almost indefinitely, but the people have to eat, right? And so
something outlast us.
yeah. And so inside of that's an interesting thing, is inside of the submarine culture. They have the best food. Everybody knows that. They have the best food, but they have a very tedious job of you're not going to see light for months, okay?
Which changes you.
It changes you, man. I think it's a certain mentality. And so it's something like a 90-day supply of food on a submarine. But the food deteriorates in quality the longer it's out, because fresh, you eat that first, right? There is one thing that does not, that really doesn't perish as fast, and it's eggs. But when they do perish, there's a process of how you get rid of an egg on a submarine. I wouldn't know that. I don't know
intrigued.
that. I was too. All right, so now keep in mind, a nuclear submarine is intended to run silent. Period. So much so that a French and English submarine ran into each other slow impact, boom, because they did not know the other one was there. They're friends.
Yeah.
They just impacted.
Didn't start a war.
Yeah, it didn't start a war. And it was a low speed impact. They both went back to their bases. No one died. There was just an incident. Okay? All right. The disposal of an egg. You would think it would be the smell that you have to get rid of it a certain way because you're on a submarine.
That's what you'd want.
That's what you would think. Yeah, like that's an awful smell. Get rid of that. But that's not it. It's if you put an egg in the compactor that crushes the waste, it sounds like fireworks going off to sonar, right? So underwater. So if you put multiple eggs in a compactor, it sounds like basically a 4th of July going off, and now all of a sudden every submarine around can hear you.
Because sound travels through water like a whole lot
crazy. And so boom, 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 boom. Huh. Where did that come from?
Yeah, you now have
and somebody was
attention.
That's right. That's right. Or whomever was tracking you or trying to find you, right? So crazy thing, and that really got me thinking. Like the United States was so far ahead in kind of the nuclear submarine race. Now it's different, but other countries have caught up. But as I was even thinking about this, and I'm not trying to make a gigantic jump, but faith comes from hearing, and it's specifically doing this, right? Like there's a way, these little things that matter. Like we listen to things through the ears of maybe Christ or through this filter of Christ, right? And so our faith is directly impacted by that. It's training our ear to hear things. It's training our ear to pay attention to where the Lord is moving. And on the other side of that, it's training our ear to, like, I no longer listen to that. I know what's going on down here. Or and that's just maturing in your faith. That's just maturing in your ears. You talk about kids. The reality, and we can do it too. If our parents said something, we could pick our parents' voice out of a crowd. We could, everybody. It's just we recognize that voice, and that is because we have trained our ears to that. And so inside of this passage, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ, through this lens of Christ. And so maybe that's my encouragement, is certainly as kids go off to school, and there's not going to probably be a ton of college students are going to be listening to this by the time they go to college, but some may. There might be. Yeah, it might be Christmas. I want to encourage you to, one, just get into the Word. Period statement. Pastor Bradley talked about this yesterday with the book of Colossians. An amazing amount of meat. It's a fast read. Get that in your system. Just get it in there. That's one of the ways that we train our ears, is we now know what we were looking for. And we have something to compare it. And that's what humans do. It's just like those submarine individuals that are listening. They're comparing it to something else. They're comparing it to silence or what else is going on in the ocean. Like whatever that was didn't belong here. Find it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting thing.
And that is very interesting. Paying attention to how we train our ears, and just that's the amazing element of that. Because I think mine's kind of a little bit in the same vein. As schedules really kind of, family schedules really kind of get back to a normal, or get back to a consistent routine, and for a longevity period of time. But for mine, there's one verse I have a question that doesn't really impact the direction of this verse, but there's something that's mentioned in this verse that is that we need to pay attention to, and I think it really kind of it prepares our minds to stay in and identify that perspective of Christ that we are putting our lives on, and truly putting the lives of our families on. So Ezekiel 3, and Ezekiel 3 is this is a thick passage because it's the call. It's the call of Ezekiel and what God is wanting him to do. But starting in verse 22, it says, "And the hand of the Lord was upon me there. And he said to me, arise and go into the valley, and there I will speak with you. So I arose and went out into the valley, and behold, the glory of the Lord stood there, like the glory that I had seen at the Cherubah canal. and I fell on my face. Inside this element, and there's what's going on here is before this, this is the calling of God told Ezekiel, I'm making you a watchman. I'm making you a watchman to be able to watch, and you are to speak what I tell you to speak. But he also gives them this other caveat. If you don't speak, if you don't tell someone to stop doing something, if you don't give them the warning, he says, I will require your blood of their iniquity. Essentially saying, like, man, you are the one who is guilty of murder, is what God told Ezekiel. But fast forward just a few verses, that starts in verse 16, we're at verse 22, and he says, go to the valley where there I will speak to you. The Cherubim Canal, one thing I was reading in a commentary just a couple weeks ago, they put a lot of other different areas, or not areas, but a lot of other elements that they say were around this exact same place. And so I can't remember all of them. This a couple, maybe almost a month ago, I read this, and it was just interesting to me of like, man, they say the same thing about Mount Hermon. There was a lot of Samuel being able to, not Samuel, Isaac. Sorry, my mind is flowing all over the place. The sacrifice of Isaac, and Abraham's like, this is my son, and yes. And so inside this element, I think there's one consistent thing we need to pay attention to, and it's identifying what valley are you in. You know, as you start your schedule, as you start getting back in the routine, what valley are you in? Are you paying attention? Because there's also a lot of things, not necessarily this particular valley, but there's a lot of high impact situations that happen in other valleys. One, for instance, is Joshua. Joshua praying. There was a battle happening, and it says of a certain valley, the sun stood still, so that God gave Israel more time to win the battle. Like as nightfall was coming, they were going to lose the upper hand. And so there's a lot of other elements. Another element that is in the valley is sacrificing to other gods and other rituals, and almost in the sense of like, man, this is in a covering of God's eyes, but it's not. And so much of us being and paying attention to what valley we're in, and that's really going to really set the tone of our mind, of us paying attention. It's not just any valley that will work. It's go to this valley. I'll give you just another little snippet of a story, not a story, but for instance, when a zebra is born, a mom will take that baby away. Obviously, us knowing zebras, it's the black and white striped horse that is really loud and really wild. Like I heard there's not much anything that people try to tame them for, just because of they're so strong-willed. But one thing that the mother does after she has her child, they go away. They go away, and she just like, they get face to face like this, and she just sits there, and it's so that the child can identify her stripes.
Oh, interesting.
The stripes that are on her face of like, regardless of what's going on, there's a line running, but there's my mom. You know, so us identifying what valley we're in and listening to God going, go to this valley. Go to this valley, and there I will speak with you.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of full circle of like staying on the path of what it is that God is calling us individually and uniquely to do, which will, amazingly enough, in God's omniscience, will just let everything else fall in line and fall in the place that it needs to fall in as well. And that is the strength of numbers right there. When we are all unified, just in as the writing of the scriptures, and there's so many different authors, but yet none of them seem to be building credit for themselves. You know, like there's not another book that does that is written by multiple different people. That there's one author that's coming to the forefront, and this one is the sacrifice of all these authors saying, go meet with God.
Yeah, it's pointing somewhere else.
Yeah,
that's a good call. I appreciate that. You know, that what you were talking about with training. That's what that mom was doing. It was just training that that baby zebra to that colt to this is what I look like, man. And what's crazy about that, when you take a step back and you look at that particular example, knowing what valley you're in, knowing where you're going, etc. But in that zebra's point of view, man, know who your mom is, know where she is, and know when to identify her. Your life depends on it.
Yeah.
Everything about your survival is dependent on your relation to where's that face, you know.
Yeah.
So that training matters, and I think it absolutely does. It's one of the worst things that I think that we as believers, modern believers, do is we forget how deadly sin is, and we forget that our life really depends on the Word, and that relationship with the Lord. We look past that, and frankly, we're going to suffer for that. So, wow, that's kind of heavy all of a sudden, which is good, right? Which is good. I hope everybody's having a great Monday and a remainder of your week. Thank you for joining us, and wherever this does find you throughout the course of the week, or however that works, we hope it finds you well. Ben with the swag on.
Swag's coming out strong this time of the year for us.
Yeah.
And as it should.
Yeah, a lot of cool hats, and then we still have some shirts left, and come and find that. Our 50th is coming up, and I'm really kind of excited, but it's screaming up on us.
It is.
It's almost here. So for those of you who are involved with service projects, we're on the clock. We need to get those done. And if you have any questions about them, be sure that you ask somebody. Don't be confused. Just ask, and we will explain as best as we can and make them happen. So that's it. Love you guys. We'll catch you next time.
See you.